Hello and welcome to the last edition of Inside COP15 Live with me, Verity Cowper. As we go live on air here, things are not looking that good in the Bella Centre. We don't know when or even if we're going to get a deal. It's been an extraordinary day with heads of state queuing up to say their piece to the public, but we don't actually know what's going on inside the talks. One thing's for sure, it's going to be a very long night and possibly even a long weekend. Joining me today to talk about what's been going on are Yolanda Kakabadse, President of WWF International and former Environment Minister for Ecuador, and Keya Chattergee, Climate Expert and member of the WWF negotiating team. So Yolanda, you've both been up at the Bella Centre all day. Yolanda, has there been any progress? Have we heard of any developments?
Well, Verity, it's very different from other conferences that I have participated in. Usually in the last day or the last couple of days, there is excitement. People are looking forward to what's cooking, to what's coming out. Yeah. And I have sensed in the last couple of days, and today especially, a silent conference. People rushing from one side to the other, no excitement. There is lots of people, but it's like looking at a silent movies of the 40s, yeah, moving around, but no noise. And you know, that makes you get concerned.
Nerve-wracking.
Yes, nerve-wracking in a way. The only exciting thing, I would say, is this morning's Lula's speech. Yeah. And that was great. Everybody sort of jumped up to the emotions that he was able to express in his speech.
Yeah, what were the key points that he sort of got people excited
Well,
about?
He said that, I think he reflected what everybody was feeling, that it's a shame that by now we don't have an agreement, that after 2 years of negotiations and several days here in Copenhagen, there is nothing final. He expressed the feeling of everybody that this is not just finances, that this is an agreement that has to reflect realities of the different parts of the world, and that everybody has to work for it, and obviously with differentiated responsibilities. But you could see that he was speaking from his heart in also telling what Brazil is ready to do to contribute to the solution, but calling on the other countries to make an equal an effort that would reflect the need to act now and to act with very serious commitments. And expressing that he couldn't believe what was happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. Keya, why do you think it's taken this long? I mean, they've had 2 years. Why is it all happening at the last minute?
Well, I think a lot has happened in the last 2 years that we should recognize. Brazil is a great example of a country that came forward with targets. If you had asked me 2 years ago, would we be where we are now, today, I don't think I would have believed it. I don't think I would have believed that we would have targets from so many countries. We had Brazil come forward with very specific targets that they would reduce emissions below projections. We've had just in the last few weeks, we've had targets put forward by South Africa that were really impressive. We had targets put forward by India. We've had a target on the table from Mexico for a long time. We now have targets from Indonesia, and coming from the U.S., we have a target from the U.S. It's not nearly as strong as it needs to be, but honestly, we didn't think we would even be this far. We didn't think we'd be able to get targets out of the U.S. administration without having a piece of Senate legislation passed. And so I think we should recognize that we've come a long way to get here. And even if you had asked me 2 weeks ago if you'd have this many heads of state here right at the end, I don't think I would have believed it. I mean, it's really quite incredible. And the sad part is, and I think that President Lula captured this, the sad part is that in some ways their negotiators have let them down. These heads of state have come. Yeah. They want to be here because they prioritize this issue, or else I don't know why they'd be here. They must care.
But they came for a celebration. Heads of state believed that they were coming to a big party to celebrate a commitment, and legally binding, which I think is the big gap. Yeah. And they came to find out that they had to go into the room to negotiate. As President Lula said, he couldn't believe that at 2 o'clock in the morning he was in the room negotiating in the name of the team.
It's so unusual that they couldn't work out these issues, and I think it tells you that there wasn't enough homework done before we came. There was a lot done. We made a lot of progress, but the negotiating teams must not have really had the mandate, you know, to work out these crunch issues, these really, really tough issues. or else I think they probably would have, because if you were going to take a game theory view of this and think, okay, you've got all these countries and it's a game of diplomacy here, and they should, if they're all acting in their interests, they should all want a deal. But for the past year, they haven't been acting as though they as though they want a deal, which means they've been acting not in their interests, which means there must be something holding them back.
Yeah.
That makes you sort of get suspicious.
Yeah.
When they don't manage to agree for such a long time, people start imagining what are the hidden interests behind every country, every grouping or whatever. And that's very damaging. The moment you start suspecting everybody and everything, it's not a very constructive way of reaching an agreement.
No, I mean, they've all obviously got a common goal, so what's missing? It'd be great to talk about Obama's speech. We've actually got a clip of that now, so we'll just play that to the viewers.
Come here in Copenhagen because climate change poses a grave and growing danger to our people. All of you would not be here unless you, like me, were convinced that this danger is real. This is not fiction. It is science. Unchecked, climate change will pose unacceptable risks to our security, our economies, and our planet. This much we know. The question then before us is no longer the nature of the challenge. The question is our capacity to meet it. For while the reality of climate change is not in doubt, I have to be honest, as the world watches us today, I think our ability to take collective action is in doubt right now. And it hangs in the balance. I believe we can act boldly and decisively in the face of a common threat. That's why I come here today, not to talk, but to act.
So what did you think? A lot of people have said that there was lots of rhetoric in Obama's speech and he didn't come up with any specific examples. He's come in at a late stage and he seems to be being quite impatient. What do you think about his speech?
It seemed to me that he was negotiating in front of the cameras, in front of a plenary, and it didn't seem like the right place necessarily to be negotiating. I can understand why behind closed doors you take a hard line and you really try to get everything you want in terms of, in this case, in terms of transparency. But it wasn't the sort of spirit of hope and of change that we've gotten accustomed to from Obama. So it didn't meet people's expectations in terms of the tone of it. I also think it was lacking a lot in terms of the substance of it. We heard the president say a number of times that we will act, but we don't have any evidence that we'll act. We don't know how we're going to act in the U.S. We don't have any legislation. We had just heard President Lula come up before and say that they did have legislation. We didn't even hear a promise that we were going to get legislation. And so, given the history of these negotiations, and as Yolanda was saying, people are suspicious, there's a lot of mistrust, but a lot of that is because of the history of the U.S. in these negotiations, that the U.S. had come forward with a number and then not followed through and not joined the international community and has been on the sidelines for many, many years. And so, it was, for me, the speech was really missing a clear statement of how the U.S. was going to act, and the tone just didn't seem quite right for this major address on climate change, where I would have hoped that he would have used it as an opportunity to really rally the global community towards a common goal.
But in addition, I think that in the campaign, and several times during this year, he has spoken about climate change with passion.
Yeah.
Where you could see the level of concern that he has.
Yeah.
And today he didn't reflect that. It was a flat speech.
Yeah.